We are united in diversity. We are very heterogeneous in our opinion.
If we do not renew our partnerships with the rest of the world, Europe will not be relevant.
We can make it if we are together as Europeans.
Development and looking ahead to what is next.
Do you genuinely believe that countries will manage to reach these very ambitious targets?
I think so, yeah. So maybe two people on the couch and one person on the chair, so we're closer. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the networking break and are ready for this next discussion, which I'll again be moderating. My name is Bartosz Brzezinski, agri-food reporter at Politico. And for those of us just joining us online or in the room, we've tackled some big questions today, some overlapping themes. Now we turn our attention to what's left on the EU sustainability agenda for agriculture and food sector. Can we move beyond the setbacks of the EU Farm to Fork strategy, or has it left an unfillable void in our climate and food goals? I'm joined today by an expert panel from far left, Mihail Dumitru, Deputy Director General of the European Commission's DG Agri. To his right, we have Vincent Delobel, organic goat herder and board member of La Via Campesina, a farmers' organization advocating for farmer rights, economic justice, and environmental sustainability. He's filling in for Morgan Odi, who couldn't join us. She couldn't join us, unfortunately, today. And to my left, we have Charlie Angelakos, Vice President for Global External Affairs and Sustainability at McCain Foods. So yeah, as I was saying, the past few years have been tumultuous for EU agricultural policy. The ambitious Farm to Fork strategy, which was a pillar of the European Green Deal, has faced resistance from farmers, backlash from industry, and lukewarm support from governments. Officially, it's now sidelined, leaving us to question what comes next. At stake are three critical pillars: economic viability, environmental responsibility, and social fairness. How can the EU balance these competing demands, especially with climate neutrality targets looming? And with ongoing farmer protests, how do we ensure that legislation doesn't alienate those at the heart of food production? Looking to you, Mihail Dumitru, the Farm to Fork was intended to transform Europe's food system, but it has faced significant hurdles. In hindsight, where do you think it fell short, and how is the Commission recalibrating its approach to sustainability going forward?
First of all, I would like to remind that the Common Agriculture Policy addresses the sustainability in its three dimensions, as you mentioned. So if you look to the objective of the Common Agriculture Policy, we have 9 specific objectives, 3 for economic, 3 for environment, and 3 for social. And with each policy cycle, we are looking to the instruments of the policy and try to adjust these instruments to make them more effective to deliver on these 3 dimensions. And in this period, I think Ricard in the previous panel he just mentioned that we are just in the 2nd year of implementation of the current Common Agriculture Policy 2023-2027, and we still have elements of this policy which comes in after we review it on each of these 3 pillars. I mean, I can give you the example that in this period we have reinforced the redistributive elements to target better and to make the income support fairer. So we have quite a big effort made by the member states to redistribute money towards the small and medium size. Just to give you a figure, we have every year 4 billion euros, they are reallocated to this category of small businesses, which is 2.5 times more than in the previous period. If we look to the environmental sustainability, we have done a lot of changes, and some of them, they are still coming in. For instance, if we look to the good agriculture and environmental conditions, some of them, they were phased in over a period, and next year, for instance, we still have important GAEX and changes that are coming in. For instance, the protection of carbon-rich soils, they will only enter into full speed application in all the member states, and this is a very important GAEC for the carbon sequestration and keeping the carbon in soil. Maybe one of the very important aspects on the social sustainability is that we have introduced for the first time in the common agriculture policy a conditionality, a social conditionality, so the respect of labor conditions, and it is next year which this social conditionality enter into full speed in all the member states. So we still have a lot to do with this, and next year is the first year when we are going to receive the first full report of the implementation of this policy, where we can look both in terms of the output and the results. And since we are in a new delivery model, which is a results-based, it's the first time when we can measure if we are going into the right direction or not.
Right, but with the Farm to Fork strategy, which was kind of the pillar of the previous commission, the idea was that to use the CAP as an engine to power this strategy. Do you think that the agricultural legislation, as it stands today, is enough to ensure consumers benefit, for example, from healthier diets or affordable, sustainable food? Is CAP on its own enough to create that transition?
We have a lot of new regulations moving in this direction and leading to this green and digital transformation. And many of these instruments now, they are used to put the farmers on the path towards sustainability on the 3 dimensions I mentioned to you. Of course, there is a lot of changes in the way farmers, they are conducting their businesses. We are trying to incentivize farmers to move into this new method of production, which are going to address these challenges. And of course, I think the farmers, if I take the example of organic, so I think we are trying to do a lot more in moving from conventional to organic farming. And we are working not only on the, let's say, the production side, we are also trying to develop the demand side. We have developed other instruments in the previous commission, but we'll continue in the next commission. For instance, we have an action plan looking to both to the supply and to the demand side, trying to recognize excellence, trying to develop the whole value chain. I think, yes, this is moving in the right direction, and then we have to look if it is the right speed to this direction.
Vincent, you're a farmer. Are things moving in the right direction? We've seen massive farmer protests this year where economic viability was one of the key concerns being raised.
Yeah, and it's still, the agenda for us is still the same as last winter. For decades, farming families, we have experienced a double squeeze. First, economical squeeze, while the cost of our inputs are constantly increasing, while the prices of our products stagnate and are more and more fluctuating. And that's one thing. And the other thing is a technological squeeze where, we are trapped in a never-ending, linear, single development trajectory of our farms towards more scale enlargement, taking over more land and more resources from colleagues, and also adopting high-tech and very expensive technologies, and that these two go hand in hand when you need more technology to take control of more land and animals, and also you need more land and animals to pay for all this expensive technology. And this double squeeze really tends to, for these last decades, to decrease our labor income and also to increase the farm capitalization. The financial heaviness of farms is increasing, and which make it very difficult for young farmers like me to take it over. Banks do not give loans easily. And also we experience diminishing bargaining power in the food chain as the major actors in food chains are merging in big groups, and the individual farming families are feel quite weak in the negotiation. And to this scenario, we do bring some solutions, and we want to respond to this. And many farming families here in Europe, we are really producing novelties, so innovative farming practices that enlarge our autonomy of the farm. For example, on my farm, we started to produce own feed, fertilizers, seeds as well, a big part of our energy on the farm. We try to process and also to sell a part of our products to retain more added value on the farm and to pay for the labor injected. And unfortunately, all these kind of strategies that are wide adopted in Europe farming families, at the moment we must acknowledge that this good, brave development is under threat, because in the meanwhile, this economical position of us is again and continuously under pressure, while the poor concentration in the food chain is still increasing. The price construction is still not transparent. It is new free trade agreements are still being negotiated, and at the moment we are really a bit disappointed, because we bring very innovative and also relevant solutions to the strategical challenges of this century, biodiversity loss, energy issues, climate change, or social justice needs. And at the same time, we are in a global context, where the general rules of the game are still not in favor, or we really have to struggle for it and to push for it. That is, do not let us alone having good ideas and pushing, these new solutions. But really, we need a major structural change that goes beyond this. I'm sorry, but this kind of ideological dogmatism that is still governing food and farming at the moment.
So do you think the Europe's response to these challenges, where Michal was mentioning the simplification that happened, but also making sure that becomes kind of less burdensome on farmers? Is that do you think that's the main concern that farmers have today?
I wouldn't say that the administrative burden, etc., is not the main issue. It has taken a lot of space in the debate last winter, but for us the critical thing is just, we really want you to understand this triangle between having a fair income with fair prices, a stable income, and the context is fluctuating, and we are very vulnerable people. That's one point that has been that must be related to sustainable practices. We cannot have sustainable farming and make sustainable farming practices if our own income is still very precarious and vulnerable, and link it also to the access to resources, and especially access to land. While in my area, at the moment, a big supermarkets company are buying land and renting it, not renting it to farmers anymore, but trying to have more control on what is grown on the field, bigger control on the prices, both of the inputs and the products. And again, this autonomy of farming families is then squeezed. It's again a triangle between the income, the fair income, sustainable practices, and a sustainable, long-lasting access to land.
Charlie, you coming from McCain, from your experience in the private sector, how can businesses like that help bridge this gap between policy goals and the actual implementation on the farm, livelihoods on the farm, and the trajectories in which farmers are being asked to go?
Great. Well, first, thank you for the opportunity. It's great to be on the panel. Maybe I just want to take a step back and talk about the why we are doing what we're doing as a company. We've been in business for 67 years. We're a family-owned company. We built our business in partnership with 3,500 farming partners around the world and 1,500 here in Europe. When our founders founded our company, they said if we don't get the agronomy right, nothing else is going to matter. When we first founded our company, we probably had one climate event every 15 or 20 years, and as a business, we would have to manage that event and absorb it within our P&L. It was just an extraordinary thing that happened. And then a few years ago, we realized that we were starting to get 10 to 15 climate events a year in all parts of the growing regions around the world in which we operate. So that forced us to do a climate change study, a climate study, which with a university here in Europe, which studied different climate patterns going prior and then looking forward what the world would look like to 2050. The results were absolutely startling for us. As a result of that, we made a commitment that 100% of our farming partner acres will be regeneratively practiced agriculture by 2030. So how do we do that? We began to work with our farmer base. We made it farmer-centric. We are fortunate as a consumer packaged goods company to work directly with our farmers. We don't deal through brokers. So that gives us an added advantage to always be constantly listening to the farmer to understand what their needs are. So we set out and built a regenerative agriculture code that we worked with our farming partners together, and we also pressure tested it with governments, farming groups, and NGO to ensure that it was going to be practical and effective. But we didn't stop there. We know that there is a cost to the transition that you speak of. So what we did was we worked with our farming partners and different organizations to set out on a training regime. And then at the same time, based on a cost transition, we worked with our partners in our banking syndicate to come up with financial instruments that we think are absolutely critical to help our farmers along with the transition. So here in Europe, we had an agreement with Crédit Agricole in France, which is the primary agriculture bank in France, where we are backstopping and writing off interest on loans for the farmer to make the transition. We also entered into specific contracts in France with our growers, where we gave them a long-term contract of 6 years in exchange for farming regeneratively according to our codes. And in addition to that, we give them a €5 ton premium to farm regeneratively. But we know that this is not a one-size-all-fits solution. So we know that if we have 3,500 farming partners, they are dealing with 3,500 different P&Ls. So we've taken the financial model and we moved to the Netherlands and Poland as well. And I know that our friends and partners from Rabobank are here who helped us design a great program from our farmers in the Netherlands. And we have these schemes around the world. But we know that it's just not money alone that's going to do it. We have what we would call farms of the future, where we have set out from a McCain perspective that we run our own farms where we're trialing regenerative agriculture techniques and proving that they work or not work in some instances. And if we fail, that's okay, because we're failing on behalf of the farmer. So we use these, the trials there to work to scale up. It's early days there, but our emissions on our farms of the future in Canada are down 30% versus control farms, and our yields are up. So it's proving that this works along the way for the farmer. And in France, on our demo farms, we know that over the last several years, our yields have been down 8%. In France, and through the work that we're doing on our demo farms with regenerative agriculture, yields are now up 11%. So we feel confident that if we work with our farmers and give them the right tools, the right training and financial incentive, we can get to a much better place to not only mitigate climate change, but also build a strong, resilient food supply chain for the future. Because at the end of the day, if our farmers succeed, we're going to succeed as a company as well.
All of this costs money. Making farming more sustainable, more environmentally sustainable, more climate both resilient, but also mitigating emissions. And we've heard in the protests that farmers feel, that they feel kind of that there's a lot of pressure on them or expectation from them to be delivering, to be changing their habits, to be shifting away from certain types of practices. And they say that corporations, supermarkets, retailers profit from all of this. How does the Commission plan to address this discrepancy, this imbalance, and ensure that everybody across the value chain contributes equally or equitably to this transition?
I think when we've been confronted with this protest of the farmers, and I think it's true that they were not only complaining about the administrative burden, they were complaining about the fair income, and they were complaining the unfair competition and a lot of other things. And we look to all of these things. Of course, we have come with a package of simplification for the reduction of the administrative burden. We have tried to simplify to as much as possible without touching on the ambition of the green ambition of the CEP. But we also look into the position of the farmers in the value chain. I think these are also initiatives that we work on them, trying on one hand to see how the unfair trade practices directive we have adopted some years ago, it is operating now, and if there is things that can be improved there. And of course, we have identified a number of things like, for instance, transborder implementation aspects, but also trying now to strengthen the position of the farmers on the value chain by helping them to become a stronger voice on the value chain. On the other hand, I think it's very important that in terms of changing practices and contributing to the green transition, all the actors on the value chain, they take a fair share of the responsibility, and they are doing their part. And of course, there are a lot of requests that comes at the beginning of the value chain, and farmers, they were first confronted with this. But now I think we have to look and have a much more holistic view and try. And I think I'm very, very glad that examples like McCain Food here shows us that they are working with the farmers. I think this is an example where also the private sector, they can contribute to this resilience and sustainability agenda. And I think it is also very important that we can arrive to measure better along the value chain. I think we are now in a process, and I think you know that following this protest, we organize a strategic dialogue. And out of this strategic dialogue, there was also this idea of developing a benchmarking system, because we would like to measure who contributes and how they contribute, because there are many practices and many things farmers and other actors are doing on the value chain, which are not very well captured and measured, and we can demonstrate that at the end of the day, the policy delivers. And I think we are a lot focusing now, zooming in on how to measure better. And if we measure better, then we know exactly who contributes, and then we can also adjust the different instruments and policies and involve more the actors alongside the value chain.
Mm-hmm. I want to build on that, and from your side, where do you think the attention should be focusing? Is it, you were mentioning the farm level, is it the middle of the value chain? Is it the retailers?
Well, first of all, I think we want at least in our intention at the Commission level and the regulatory level, we would like to contractualize more the relationship along the value chain. So this is one of the preoccupation for strengthening the position of the farmer in the value chain. I think that there are possibilities of multiplying or increasing the source of incomes. You mentioned the fair income, and one of the main instruments of the common agriculture policy is still income support to the farmers, which provide them a safety net. Sorry. This is just because their income is much lower than the rest of the economy, so there is a gap of about 40% with the other sectors, and we try to come and cover these gaps, but we cannot only cover and improve the income only by subsidies, by supporting with public money. I think, first of all, the market, they should recognize better the efforts made by the farmers, especially when they enter into different methods of production and schemes which deliver more on environment and climate. This has also to be recognized, and the consumers and the other actors on the value chain, they should contribute to these efforts. We have to develop other sources of income for the farmers. I mean, by remunerating ecosystem services. Of course, we have introduced new instruments, which is also, again, based on the public money, the famous eco schemes, where we try to incentivize a lot of good practices and especially nature-based practices. But there are other possibilities. I mean, we are thinking about elaborating a lot more and developing other services, like, recognizing the carbon storage and these certificates, and developing different other ecosystem services for which both the public and the private sector and the market can come and recognize. And I think the farmers, they are keen to get into this, and because this will increase the income, and they know that they are moving into the right direction.
On that, what about nudging? If there is a lot of scientific evidence to suggest that we need to be eating less meat, we need to be doing this or that to mitigate our impacts on the environment, on the planet, but also for human health. Vincent, do you think agricultural subsidies should be kind of targeted towards nudging farmers in a specific direction?
At least our point is that it should not be just shared and give and distributed, let's say, with to larger farms. At the moment, that's a bit the vicious effect of it is that if the payments are more distributed per hectare than per effort, let's say, in terms of employing people or having more sustainable farming practices, then it's just supporting scale enlargement of farms, which is not a goal in itself. That's one point. But first, for us, the CAP should first regulate the market and also the power relationships in that market. The narrative is still about competitiveness and competition, but what we do experience is not a free competition between free individuals. We are quite weak farming families in a commercial relationship with big groups, and for my sector is the dairy sector and the milk market at the moment. In my area, there are not many buyers. You are producing milk, but when my dad established in early 80s, there were about 20 different industries looking for milk and some competition, between them as well. But at the moment, many have closed down or they've merged into big groups, and so a new dairy farmer today has not different buyers, and so the possibilities are very limited, and so your bargaining power is very small. And at that moment, I think, and we think at the Campesina, that the public authorities have a role to play to guarantee these more fair relationships on that market. And so that's a very important point first, to make sure that to be trapped into only one ideology or one theory, but first look how the market is currently functioning and what has to be done to be sure it's still healthy at some point inside. And then, yeah, when the major structure, the major functioning is healthy, then for sure, and we really support this idea of having public support for public goods and positive effects, externalities that better farming practices produce, and to also we really experienced it at home that when we started reduced tillage or organic fertilization, etc. Yeah, it's when you try for the first time, you always make mistakes, and so you take risks, and this has a cost somehow. And so at the moment, yeah, mainly farming families pay for it, and yes, for sure, this kind of transition needs some support, and they deliver really public goods.
Mihail and then Charlie. Mihail, income support, it's so critical. It's and we hear from Vincent how difficult the life of a farmer is, also vis-a-vis the other actors that operate in the value chain. But there is still societal expectation to change the way we eat, to change the way we produce. How do we balance out this negotiation? Climate targets, eventually they will have to address agricultural emissions. Biodiversity loss. How do we balance out the fact that this is such a sensitive sector and the broader societal expectation of the way we produce and consume food?
I mean, we are working with 3 different instruments here. When I say we use quite a lot of the common agriculture policy budget to pay income support, this is coming with a price. It's not coming for free. So this is there is a set of conditions and the standards attached, legal obligation attached, they have to comply with. And if you look over the years, you have to see that the set of this regulation has increased steadily. And sometimes increasing the set of the regulation has also generated additional cost. Then it comes to the question to what extent you have to work more with the regulation or more with incentives. Because above this level, then we come with incentives. And who wants to do more, we pay for it. And sometimes, I mean, we face this situation in the protests in March this year, where we have tried to introduce some regulation which was really affecting, this set-aside area. So initially, we have introduced it as an obligation. And then we have to move to transform it into an incentive, because if someone puts land out of the production, this land has a cost, and then we move it into an incentive. We are paying for these services. So I think we want now to look into how to better play with the regulations, with the incentives, and with the investments, and play with these different elements of the policy in a better way, and also looking from the simplification point of view, because sometimes it's not so easy.
And Charlie, what lessons do you think the private sector can bring into this, and what specific steps should the EU be taking to address these different discrepancies?
For sure. We've been on a journey, and it hasn't been a perfect journey, but we're very happy with where we are overall. One thing I'll say is there is sustainability fatigue among our farming partners, and I think we all need to recognize that. In isolation, I think if it was McCain working with the farming base and saying these are our targets and this is how we need to move forward together, I think it would be easy. But every day a farmer is waking up and they're seeing new sustainability commitments from a retailer, one of my competitors, or somewhere else, and then just wondering, what does this mean for me? So I think from an EU perspective, I think the sooner we can get to commonly aligned industry metrics that make things easy and practical for the farmer to measure and move forward, the better off we're all going to be, so that we are going to be we're going to be rowing in the same direction and not each have different metrics that we are expecting of the farmer base. And the second thing is, I agree with you. I think we do need to look at programs more holistically to make sure that they are outcome-based, but also are equitable for large and small-scale farmers. We work with everybody across the range of farming partners. I think we are constantly doing our part in looking to the future. Now, whether the next evolution of financing is with an equipment manufacturer or coming up with some sort of insurance instrument, we continue to look for ways that we can finance the transition to work through that. And I think government has a role to play in that. The philanthropic sector has a role to play in that. And obviously, the private sector does as well, because at the end of the day, we built our business in partnership with the farmer, and this is really about mitigating climate change, but really setting up the family farm for the future to build a secure, resilient supply chain for all of us.
Thank you. We have to stop here. Thank you to all to the three panelists. Thank you to the audience. Clearly, the conversation isn't easy, and there are many competing or complementary and competing interests that need to be addressed. Please remain seated. In a few minutes, our trade and agri editor, Douglas, will be interviewing the EMEA president of Oilseeds and Group Chief Risk Officer at ADM, Mr. John Turney. So don't leave your seats. And thank you again. It's been a pleasure moderating this session.
Thank you.